All right, guys, let me know if you can hear me and if you can see me. This is something new that I'm trying, and so the goal is that this works. However, it's new, so I don't know. If you want to get on and ask a question, you're going to have to head over to the YouTube stream, like the actual YouTube one, not the one that's available on my little blog. So all 5 of you guys that are watching this right now. If you want to ask a question, just jump on over to the YouTube video. You got to click the little link in the bottom corner, and then you can type in a question. This is I'm trying to set this up like Facebook. The idea is that I don't have to hold a phone, and that it reaches a whole lot more of you. At least that's the goal. Because when I tend to do a Facebook Live on one account, I can't do it on the other account or the blog account or whatever. And I feel like sometimes people are missing out on an opportunity to get information. So the goal is to get it to absolutely everybody. So if you can hear me, jump on into the chat and let me know. If you can't hear me or you can't see me, I'm going to assume that if nobody says anything, that y'all can't hear me. So hang in there for a couple more seconds. I'm still trying to lock down a couple of things in here. But in the meantime, if you can hear me, see me, and this is working okay, if you could jump over to YouTube, the little link that's in the bottom of this video, on the video screen, and just kind of click over to YouTube, jump into the chat on there, and just say, "Yo, dude, you're working." That would be extremely helpful. But in the meantime, hang with me for a couple more seconds. I'm trying to knock out some last-minute bugs, and then we'll get going on this. All right, so I think that should get us going. And again, hopefully you guys can see and hear everything. But this is kind of what we're looking at for today, and we can bounce over to the radar. This is what we've got going right now across the area to give you guys an idea about how things are kind of shaking out. We can kind of zoom in here, get a little bit tighter for South Mississippi. And notice that mainly right now we're just talking about rain. And if you've been out and about, you've probably encountered not only a fair amount of drizzle and light rain, but probably some fog. The reason is all the more active weather is down off to the south, and this is all stuff that's just kind of getting scraped off to the north and northeast, kind of into our neck of the woods. But right now, we're playing the waiting game on severe weather, and given the fact that we've had a fair amount of rain in here this morning, I'm a little less less prone to think that we're going to be dealing with severe weather. So here's the HRRR as we head through the rest of today. This is kind of about the way that the model thinks that it should look just about right now, and I would say that, you know, that's pretty close. Here, we can back this out a little bit. That's pretty close. So you've got what the radar actually looks like and kind of what the model thought it was going to look like as of about 2 hours ago. So, you know, this is probably a little more than this, you know, and so, you know, you could say, okay, well, the models may be kind of overperforming a little bit, but as we head through the next couple of hours, you know, this is as of right now, maybe as of about 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, roughly. Pushes everything out of here. Notice, not too much severe in here. Not a lot of reds. There are some oranges, but in specifically, really not much to this. And here, let me zoom in maybe a little bit tighter into South Mississippi. But, you know, as you kind of go back and forth here between about right now, 2, 3, 4 hours, 3 hours from now. So this is 3 hours from now. We clear out of this in the next about 3 hours, which would be about 4 or 5 o'clock. As we head into the afternoon. And I think by 5 or 6 that we're pretty much out of the woods in terms of the rain. And that's most of what this is going to be, is rain and maybe a little bit of hail and some gusty wind. We can get in here a little bit tighter and talk about what the skew-T is looking like. And this isn't anything that looks too terribly severe. You know, what you see on here, the red is the temperature line, the green is the dew point line. And anytime they're close, as they are up above about 700 millibars, you're probably squeezing out some rain. Your wind barbs over here aren't necessarily too scary, you know, 20, 30, 40, 45 knots up at about 500 millibars. Most of your omega is in the upper levels of the atmosphere, but in terms of overall CAPE, there's really not much, so that we don't have a lot of instability. We have a fair amount of shear and a fair amount of helicity, but I mean, this doesn't scream severe weather to me, and I mean, it really shouldn't, because neither does this. So, you know, as we get through that, and as we head through, you know, into the overnight hours and into early Monday morning, now we start looking back off to the northwest at maybe something else that's out there, but even that is even that is going to take some time to get here, and that may skip us by to the north. So now let's look at the updraft helicity. Now, this is the individual updraft, and does it have any rotation to it? We can go ahead and forward in time, suggesting that as we head through the day, yeah, we may get a couple around here. Let me zoom into South Mississippi for you guys. The shaded areas are going to be the areas where you've got more updraft helicity. And as you'll see here in a second, the shaded areas don't mean a whole lot. I mean, yeah, maybe a little bit. That would be like maybe a little bit of hail and some gusty wind. But then you start looking back off to the west. See, the stuff in Texas and Louisiana, those yellows, the reds, so red that it's purple, that is updraft helicity where you'd see a strong supercell or a severe thunderstorm with big hail, some pretty gusty wind, and the possibility of a tornado. Notice it starts marching, but as soon as it starts marching, they start falling apart as we head through the overnight hours tonight. And, you know, originally we were thinking that these would hold together and be a little further off to the north, so that when they kind of got our direction, it would be the overnight hours into Monday that we would be talking about threat for severe weather. But notice they just fall apart, move into the Gulf of Mexico, and we're left with nothing around here at all. I mean, we've got to wait until you get into parts of Alabama by the time you get through Monday evening. And then it's an Alabama thing. So, I mean, you can see that would be, and what you see on the screen now for parts of Alabama, those are, you know, lone discrete supercells or embedded supercells within the line with a lot of updraft helicity and the possibility of producing some severe weather, the possibility of producing some pretty gusty wind, some hail, and the possibility of a tornado. But around here and into parts of South Mississippi, that's just simply not the case. You know, we can run this forward in time and notice nothing down here. So that's the warp. Now I want to look at the NSSL warp, because there's one in here that does show maybe something a little more robust this afternoon for some of our southern counties, you folks in Wiggins down toward Loosedale. But, I mean, again, this is not the bright yellows, the reds, the purples. This is maybe something that would have some small hail and some pretty gusty wind. Then here comes the rough stuff out of Texas. It still dives to the south. However, you do see maybe some updraft helicity across our area. Again, wind gusts, maybe some small hail as we head through the overnight hours tonight. And then as you move forward in time, it just kind of passes us by. And then we're talking about stuff, again, into Alabama and not necessarily bothering us. And this is why they have the enhanced risk out for parts of Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia, I believe, as we head through the day tomorrow and into Tuesday. But for us right now, I think the overall severe weather threat is waning. And this is why sometimes when, and let's go back to the HRRR here, you'll see these maps that get thrown around on social media a lot, you know, and I'm going to pull up the significant tornado parameter. Let's zoom this out. And the significant tornado parameter is it's a good tool. It'll give you an opportunity to line up a couple of different things on top of each other to let you know, hey, are tornadoes possible? And I'm gonna run this forward in time here, and you'll see that we end up in a situation where, yeah, we've got some numbers higher than 0, but look at how this kind of overtakes the area as we head through the overnight hours, where a lot of South Mississippi is in that area where you've got the possibility to have numbers above 1 for the sort of significant tornado parameter. Okay, let's back this back out again. Now we'll do same thing. Instead of looking at the HRRR, which is our short-range model, we're going to look a little further out with an AM3K. And we're going to run this through. Notice you do end up with some bright colors this afternoon across parts of western Mississippi and northeastern Louisiana. That kind of falls apart. Then we head through the overnight hours, and you get this kind of blob tomorrow afternoon that just kind of erupts off to the north into parts of northern Mississippi and Alabama, and then you end up with these super bright colors across parts of Alabama as we head into the evening on Monday and into early Tuesday morning. And that kind of lines up with where some of our other models were showing where that updraft helicity is. But, you know, we end up with these bright colors. Sure, you know, we can kind of get in here and take a peek at what the SKU-T is suggesting. And while we may have some of the numbers that you would need for tornadoes, the one thing that you don't have is low-level, not only an EIL, effective inflow layer with a Mesa Cape, but it doesn't have a whole lot of helicity to it. You know, our low-level Cape, we've got a little bit of a cap. We probably don't have the forcing we need. I think the forcing is going to end up being in the mid-levels rather than the low levels. And so things, while we have some parameters that are high that would lead to a high SIGTOR value or a higher SIGTOR value, you just don't have others. And so I know these things get passed around on social media a lot. You see this stuff and you say, oh, goodness, it's going to be a terrible, terrible day. And then, you know, nothing pans out ever, or stuff, frankly, pans and you don't get anything. And that's because you just end up with stuff in kind of the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think that's what we're going to get. We're going to get stuff in the right place at the wrong time. Specifically, right now, we've got rain across the area. Right place, wrong time. The rain's showing up early, which is kind of putting the kibosh on us, destabilizing the atmosphere. I mean, the temperature out there right now is, you know, somewhere in the low 60s. We were anticipating not seeing any rain this morning, at least regular rain, and anticipating temperatures getting into the 70s with abundant sunshine. And not maybe abundant, but enough sunshine. And USM was trying to get a game in today locally, and we didn't get one because, well, it was raining. And so you get a little bit of rain, that lowers the temperature, that lowers your overall instability. So even if you do have something that's rotating, your updraft isn't going to be too terribly strong because the instability in the atmosphere isn't too terribly high. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now in terms of the overall threat for some severe weather across parts of South Mississippi. Hopefully this worked. I didn't get as many questions on here as I usually do on Facebook, so hopefully you guys are watching, and if you did have any questions, for next time, just make sure you head on over to the YouTube link, and maybe I'll share that next time instead. But head on over to the YouTube link, and then you can ask questions. Archery starting tomorrow, Forest County. Here's a question. Perfect. Right on time. Let's see here. South State qualifiers for archery tomorrow at Forest County Multipurpose Center. From attending should not be concerned about severe weather. Yeah, if you're driving in from out of town, I think that you're going to encounter some rain, you're going to encounter some thunderstorms, but the rain here locally is doing a good job at kind of putting the lid on any severe weather. We're going to have to wait and see. Now, if this clears out and we get into full-blown sunshine and we're still able to add on another 5-8 degrees, maybe overnight we start to talk about the opportunity for some severe weather. If we can clear this out, get warm, get the low-level jet going again. But again, now we're talking about into the overnight hours, and I would imagine that schools aren't necessarily driving their kids somewhere overnight. And it kind of depends on where they're coming from. If they're coming from the coast, they may encounter some thunderstorms. If they're coming from Mobile, they may encounter some thunderstorms. But again, we're not talking about widespread severe weather at all, which is, I think, fantastic news for the area. We dodged a bullet yet again in South Mississippi. So anyway, I hope this was a worthwhile experience for everybody. And I'm going to try and do this a little bit more often, maybe. I think it's just a little bit easier than holding the phone up to a screen. It kind of allows me to bounce between a couple of different things. At least that's the goal. And hopefully it was helpful for you guys at home too. I'll try and maybe get to another one of these if it's necessary this afternoon or evening. But I find it unlikely that this will be necessary. If anything changes, of course, I'll let you guys know. But in the meantime, everybody enjoy your Sunday. It's kind of dreary out there. And then just make sure if you hear thunder, you head inside, because there's going to be thunderstorms out there. Lightning can still get you, whether a storm is severe or not. And make sure that you keep an eye to the sky and have your favorite WDAM7 weather app handy to give you guys updates in South Mississippi about the threat for severe weather. And have the NOAA weather radio up and moving, because you never know, with the rest of this afternoon of what we'll be dealing with as we head through the overnight hours. Could get an individual lone discrete supercell to try and develop. We won't know about that until we get out of this rain and we're able to see what's happening with the atmosphere. In the meantime, though, I'm going to go back to checking stuff out, and I'll catch up with you guys a little bit later.